Hey guys, it's Tin from Tin and Max, and I want to do something a little different today. We're going to do a tier list, as you can see, of all the mainline Resident Evil games. And I'm just doing the main series. I'm not doing any of the spin offs like Operation Raccoon City, which I know is garbage. Alright, you don't have to tell me. I'm not doing Code Veronica or even Resident Evil Zero, because, like, I guess you could technically argue that those are main series. I'm not doing them. I'm doing 1 through 3 Remake. So let's just get started. I have played all of these, and having done that, I can definitively say where they should be ranked. That's yeah, that's what I'm going with. Let's start with the obvious one, the first one, Resident Evil. Now, I'm gonna go ahead and stick it in A. It's not S to me, and I think that's mostly because it hasn't aged well. Like, obviously, the first Resident Evil is a big deal because it's what started the franchise. Um, kind of more or less created the survival horror genre that we know today. This went on to inspire um, so many games in the future, like Bioshock and Dead Space, which is one of my favorite games of all time. So yeah, this is an A. I don't think it's an S just because of how poorly it's aged, in my opinion. Still a great game though. Even the remake they did for like the GameCube, I think, which is I think the version I've played, but on like the PlayStation or whatever. It's pretty good. It's good. I'm not just in the first game. I just whatever. Let's move on to Resident Evil 2, which again I'm gonna put it in A. I'm saving S for like what I consider to be the top tier games in the franchise, obviously, because it's literally the top tier. Resident Evil 2 took Resident Evil 1 and did what any good sequel does and build upon it and add a lot to it. Like, it introduced the dual scenarios, like you have Leon and Claire's story. Um, excuse me, which added a lot of replayability to it. It was bigger, had I mean, not much bigger. It was bigger. It gave more of the story. You kind of got to see what was going on in Raccoon City. Very cool. I have played this. I played this on an emulator on my phone, but it was still really fun. The tank controls again haven't aged well, but other than that, these two games, they're classics, and they're classics for a reason. They really established the genre and the series, and for that, they at least deserve A. Now, let's move on to Resident Evil 3 Nemesis. This might be a little controversial because I know there's a lot of big fans of this game. I'm going to put it in B. And here's why. If you know anything about the development of Resident Evil 3, it was meant to be like a spin off of Resident Evil 2. It was one time, I think it was even called like Resident Evil 1 point something, or it wasn't really going to be a full game. It was going to be a spin off. And Code Veronica, which I mentioned earlier, was going to be the proper sequel. They had Capcom had a deal with PlayStation where they had to get one more main series Resident Evil game out for PlayStation, so they went and made the spin-off game Resident Evil 3. So that's kind of the origin of this. I don't know if that made sense, but yeah. That being said, it's still a really good game. They took a lot of the stuff from Resident Evil 2 and improved upon it. They added this thing where you could pick options for certain scenarios and things would play out differently. It didn't really affect the story overall, but it was cool. You also got to see more of Raccoon City as it went to hell, which is cool because I think the whole Raccoon City saga is my favorite period in Resident Evil. Um, but again, I don't think there was enough new stuff. There was also Nemesis. I should probably mention Nemesis, the single like Terminator like enemy stalking you the whole game. This is really what did that. There was kind of Mr. X in Resident Evil 2, but Nemesis took it to a whole nother level, and that's really cool. And I think that's what people remember a lot about it is the whole like, oh, there's Nemesis. Um, so yeah, these three games obviously really good. I think most of the series is pretty good. Now, let's move on to our first S tier game, which to me is Resident Evil 4. And here's why. This game has appeared on so many like games of all time lists for very good reason. It still kind of kept the tank controls, but it switched to the over the shoulder third person view that a lot of games like I said earlier that Resident Evil inspired Dead Space, and I think and like stuff like BioShock, even though that's first person. Resident Evil 4 is more the one that did that. Like it more directly inspired stuff. And it kind of changed not only the franchise for the better because tank controls are garbage, but like just horror genre in general. It added a lot more action elements, but it was still really like spooky and scary, and just the survival horror elements of like never like having enough ammo, and just the villagers suck, and there's those look, it's good. It's a really good game. I'm trying to get Max to play it once he finishes up BioShock. So leave comments down below if you think Max should play Resident Evil 4 for the channel before Resident Evil 8 comes out. I've played it several times. I own it on the Wii, not the Wii. I own it on the Switch and my PlayStation 4. I have two versions of it for some reason. It's just a really good game. Defines the horror genre and Resident Evil going forward, and I think that's what makes it S tier. Is it's pumps new blood into the franchise. A lot of this is just me rambling, so sorry about that. Next, we have Resident Evil 5. People might not like this. I'm gonna go ahead and stick this right there. I don't like Resident Evil 5. If you guys have been paying attention to the channel, you know I like Resident Evil 6. As stupid and over the top and ridiculous as it is, that's why I like it, because it's so stupid. It's fun. I love the co-op in it. Resident Evil 5 is like, it's the middle ground between Resident Evil 6 and Resident Evil 4. And I know that's like literally the middle ground. But it takes a lot of elements from 4, but doesn't like add enough to it like 6 does to make it interesting to me. Like, it's kind of cool, I guess. Like, they even use the same enemies from Resident Evil 4 for the most part. I don't know. I'm also just not a fan of like the story it tells and whatever. They're not like, Chris is not my favorite character in the franchise. So just personally for me, Resident Evil 5, not the best. Also, like half the game is like in the middle of the day. Ooh, sunshine. Anyway, Resident Evil 6. Big fan of. It's garbage. I recognize that. I know why people don't like it. I understand. It's flawed. I get that. But to me, it's one of my personal favorites. That being said, I'm still gonna stick it right here in C, because like, just as fun as it is, it doesn't really feel like a Resident Evil game. Like, this one out of all of the ones here is the outlier for being the most over the top, the most action oriented, and the stupidest. If you've seen the story, check out Max and I are playing through it. We might finish it. I don't know. It's stupid. I think it's fun, but it's also just very not what Resident Evil should be. So I think that puts it right in the C. I think this two placements will maybe make some people mad, but hey. Oh well. Next, we have the Resident Evil 7, which I'm going to place right here on the S tier for a lot of the same reasons that I put Resident Evil 4 here. It changed Resident Evil for the better. It made it first person. It made it scary again. Like, after the mess that Resident Evil 6 was, Resident Evil 7 is like one of the best games in the franchise. They really like listened to the fan response. We're like, you know what, we need to go back to our roots. The whole game takes place in kind of one house, one area, just like Resident Evil 1. The Baker family is terrifying. The enemies are really cool. The boss fights are great. The whole setting is great. It's a good game. They did add, like, they also, what I think is really cool about Resident Evil 7 is they incorporated a lot of modern horror game elements. Like they have the first person view that you see in a lot of like horror games, like Amnesia. Yeah, whatever. and like Outlast and stuff like that. It took the first person and then added like the Resident Evil formula to it, and it does adhere to the Resident Evil formula. You got weird convoluted puzzles that why is this in the house like this? You've got like the conserving ammo, and like you got to use the item boxes, and it's really good. Is my point. It's good. I should plan these videos out. Oh well, didn't. Let's move on. Resident Evil 2 remake. Now I included both of these remakes. I didn't include the Resident Evil 1 remake because it's not different enough to me to really justify being its own thing. Because like I would honestly just put it right here with Resident Evil because it's basically the same thing. Resident Evil 2 remake, however, honestly, that's an S for me. Not only is it the game that got me into franchise, I played it on my original YouTube channel when it first came out, and I loved it. This is the game that got me into Resident Evil. Now, that's not why I'm putting it here. I mean, that's part of the reason. I'm putting it here because, like these two, it adds a lot to the franchise. Like, to me, Resident Evil 2, and I think a lot of people can pretty much universally agree that this is how video game remakes should be done. Like, it takes everything that was great about the first game, or the original game, and modernizes it. Like, this game looks good, it plays great, it follows the story of the original game, and it's better. A remake should really be better than the original, at least in terms of, like, the original is going to age poorly. The remake should bring it into modern times, and that's what this is. This to me is, like, the perfect example of what a remake of a game should be. And I think for that, it deserves to be an S. I also think it's just really good. It's a good game. I love this game. It has so much replayability. They added the Ghost Survivor, like, extra scenarios, which are a lot of fun to do. Yeah, I don't know. I think it's great. Now, we got Resident Evil 3 Remake. And this one's tough, right? Because it's basically Resident Evil 2 Remake, except for you can dodge. But also, it's worse. But like, I don't know if it's C or D. Honestly, it could go right in the middle for me. I'm gonna put it in C. Because I still think it plays well, it looks good. That kind of stuff. But to me, what really lets it down is they cut a lot. Like, Resident Evil 2 Remake adds a lot. Mr. X following you in both scenarios, that was something that didn't happen in the original. It adds a lot to the story. Resident Evil 3 takes out a lot. Like, it takes out the whole clock house level. Clock house? Jeez. Clock tower. That's the word I'm looking for. It takes out the option to pick how certain scenarios play out, which I don't think you really need. But even then, it's just, like, fun fact about this game, Resident Evil 3 Remake. To get, like, rank S for, like, beating the game, like, the fastest, 2 hours. This is a 2-hour game at its fastest. I played it. When me and Max played it, it was only, like, it wasn't even a 5-hour playthrough. That's nothing. Like, Resident Evil 2 has 2 scenarios, and they're both about 4 to 5 hours, your first playthrough, and you can speedrun them pretty quickly, probably close to 2 hours. But it has the 2 scenarios. It has some variety. This whole game, it's so short. And that's not necessarily a problem. The problem there lies in the fact that it was released as a full $60 game. And I know Resistance came with it, but whatever, nobody cares about that. This should not have been a $60 full release. It should have been, I don't know, DLC for Resident Evil 2. It could have been, I don't know, bundled with Resident Evil 2, which I know it is now, but like, I paid $60 for this game, and I kind of wish I hadn't, because there's not enough there to justify that price tag. I also think, personally, I think Resident Evil 2 did the whole Nemesis thing better with Mr. X. Nemesis just isn't as threatening. Like, the boss fights are kind of cool, don't get me wrong, and when he does show up, it is stressful. To me, it was almost more frustrating and annoying than anything. More than, like, scary. And Mr. X was terrifying. I still have nightmares. But yeah, no. Resident Evil 2 did the Nemesis thing better with Mr. X. I literally have this clip. I'll put it in right now. It's like, that's not scary. He's just standing out there looking in. Like, to me, that just kind of breaks it. Like, you're just gonna sit there and watch me? You're trying to kill me. You were breaking through walls in my apartment to destroy me like 10 minutes ago, and now you're just gonna stare at me through the window? I don't know. Stuff like that. Like, he should have just Spider-Man'd away like he usually does. So yeah, for those reasons, it's a C for me. I don't think it's necessarily better than Resident Evil 3, the original. It's definitely not better than these. I think it fits right here. And again, mostly because of how it was handled and the release and the length and all that stuff. Plays well, looks great. Not worth $60. Okay. I guess that about does it, huh? I hope you liked this different kind of video. Maybe I can get Maxx in and we can do some other tiers. Maybe Pokemon games or other things. Let us know down in the comments if you have any ideas. I think this is fun. I just like to talk about. I love the Resident Evil games. I love the series as a whole. So, I don't know. It's fun to just talk about. So, I hope you enjoyed this. Leave a like and a comment and a subscribe down below if you haven't already subscribed. Stick around. We got some cool stuff coming up. We're going to do Little Nightmares in our next video. Little Nightmares 2, which I'm really looking forward to because I love the first one. So, stick around for that. And I'm just kind of rambling again. So, see you in the next video.